Apache was just a few months old. The first time I carried him around the circle during a powwow, they hear that drum and they hear the songs right from the very start, and it becomes something that's just a part of them.
Our customs and beliefs, our culture and way of life kind of shapes who you are. Apaches, we take a lot of pride in being warriors, fighters, having that wild, fierce blood. It's in us.
I grew up in a little town called Pleasant Hill, Illinois. All the time that I was a kid growing up, it was cowboys and Indians and war, army soldier, I'd make guns out of sticks.
I remember his birth. It was a rainy, drizzly day, and he came out at noontime, and as he came, so did the sun. Patrick lit up the room. He lit up our lives. He made us a family.
I think any signs Mike showed early of any interest in the military was picking out his Halloween costume when he was 8. I actually have pictures of him for one Halloween. He was 8 years old and he wanted to be a soldier.
Being a kid and playing Army, put your uniform on and you go play in the front yard and everybody dies and then your war's over and you get up and come inside and eat. You go to war and you end people's lives. They don't wake up at the end and go eat dinner. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Bless us, O Lord. When you come back home, and society says you can't do that anymore. You got to be this way. We wanted you to go do this, and you have to be like that. But now you're back. You got to be this way now. Home is not home anymore.
I was in science class, and my science teacher was a retired Army colonel. And he had it on TV in there. And he was like, "We're going to war, boys." And
my mom came in and said, "Hey, you need to come see this." I come in, the very first thing I saw when I looked at the TV was the second plane hit. Looked at my dad, and my dad was like, he was off somewhere else, I could tell. He never talked to me much about the war.
The first time I thought about joining the military was right after 9/11. And I was in school.
But the final straw that broke the camel's back was definitely 9/11. I watched that happen in school. I went home and went to the recruiter's office and finished off signing the paperwork.
My wife and I got married on October the 25th of 1942. The next day I got my draft notice. Took my physical at Fort Leavenworth, come back for about 2 weeks, and then I was gone.
I was going to college on a football scholarship, and a lot of my friends were getting killed in Korea. So I decided I should do my part, and I enlisted in the Marine Corps. And I used to be the flag-waving son of a bitch you ever did see, and I suppose I still am.
Well, I was sitting in a bathtub taking a bath in Junction City, Kansas. And one of my roommates came up and said, "Here's a mail, I think you're gonna wanna see this," and handed me a greetings and salutations letter, and I was drafted. I had 3 choices. I could leave the country, I could go to jail, or I could go to the military. And I thought that was the honorable thing to do, so I went to the military.
The day I turned 17, all of my paperwork was filled out as far as I could do, so all I had to do was get my parents to sign off on it.
I most certainly understood the gravity of my 17-year-old son signing on that dotted line because forevermore, for as long as he was in the military, he was a GI, government issue.
She was apprehensive. I think she was in a bit of denial for quite a bit. She didn't want to let me go.
Shit's for real. I mean, he was not mine anymore.
First time I met Apache, he was about 10 years old.
little bitty fart, and he was a hoop dancer.
His father, Moses, was one of the founders of the Intertribal Warrior Society, and I knew him first.
Being one of the most decorated Native American soldiers of World War II, it kind of left Apache with this, well, if Dad could do it, I can do it too.
I saw how our people treated him and how he was respected and how he carried himself, and I said, man, that is what I want to be. I want to be like my dad.
But it was a different war. And Apache went to Iraq with this idea that I'm going to change things, make it better.
I remember watching him leave, and I was just like, what am I going to do now? And I was really lonely and just by myself all the time. My family was gone, and, you know, he was my best friend, and he was my spouse, and I was left with a 9-month-old baby and a 3-year-old daughter.
And my husband would tell me not to worry, because that's what husbands do, but I did. But there was a sense of urgency in the goodbye, because I knew that instinctively he wasn't going to come back right. I just knew it. I thought it was because he wouldn't come back, but now I know that there was more to it than that.
Oh, I think my stomach was in knots that whole night because I wasn't ready to say goodbye.
The last night is kind of a somber, bittersweet experience.
For the first time, I really realized that my job was to truly let him go, because I didn't know if I'd see him ever again.
You're leaving everything you know and have ever known behind.
And I wanted to hug him one more time and smell him, because I didn't know if that'd be the last time I'd smell my child's smile and see the little mole on his face and all those stupid self-torture mom things, but.
It's not until that first time when that first mortar hits over there and blows off half a trailer, or when the first IED goes off and you can smell the asphalt burning, you can smell that powder from that explosion in the air. It's not until you see that person and what is left of a person, that's when it's real.
And it was scary, I'm not gonna lie to you. First day we went out, we hit an ID. It was a convoy of 10 vehicles, and the first vehicle hit an ID, and I remember we lost about 2 guys there. From that point on, it was really scary. Everywhere you go, you have to be on the lookout, because you never know.
Went over to Vietnam, and within a short period of time of being there, I realized that something was wrong here. We were supporting a regime that was more corrupt than the guys that wanted to take over. And there wasn't anything I could do about it. I was caught in the machine. It was an Alice in Wonderland situation. Nothing was making any sense, why we were there, why we were doing it the way we were doing it. Even though I can see how screwed up this all is, there's no way for me to get out of it but to do my tour.
I went to Korea, and there was no question on our mind what the tour of duty was. We knew we was just going to be there until we won. Anything other than winning the war was not an option.
It wasn't until I got in country that I knew specifically what job I was going to do. But, you know, I did know it was civil affairs work. It would involve rebuilding the infrastructure. But it wasn't long before I got a knock on my door at 3 in the morning or something saying, hey, you need to be up at the briefing on the mission that was going to be happening. And so when I showed up, I was told that I was going to be the Korean interpreter for the commander on a raid. And that was a real surprise to me. I really felt like I was in a movie. Like we were, you know, doing like maneuvers and they were doing room sweeps, and that was really, the first time I thought, wow, this is real.
The expectation of a completely different mission, of more of a humanitarian role. We're going to develop some areas and teach, coach, train, and mentor our Iraqi counterparts, help them get on their feet. And that was the game plan for about 3 weeks, and then everything turned on its head after the push.
I remember the first mission I went on, we locked and loaded. I chambered around and I told myself, I'm not going to shoot at a paper target. This is to kill somebody else. This is to kill one of their guys before they get the chance to kill one of mine.
You have no idea how you change the future when you kill this individual. His great-grandson may find the cure to cancer. You don't know, but you take all of that away. I could always justify it that there was somebody to my right or my left that shot the guy that I was shooting at, whether I hit him or not. In my mind, I could justify that the other guy did it. But eventually, they discovered that we needed a sniper. That was hard. It was hard to watch the carnage that we would create, because you knew you created it. And things became a little more personal to me at that point. I knew the guy that I was aiming at was shot by me.
It's one thing to see war depicted on the movie. It's another thing to have it right there in your face, up close and personal. And it got a lot more personal as time went on. Killed a guy, at close quarters. And it's something I still struggle with, because I probably didn't have to, but I did. One psychiatrist asked me, well, how were you feeling at the moment? I said, I was scared out of my mind. And her comment to me was, oh, well, then you didn't murder anybody, because all this for years, I consider myself to be a murderer. And even though she says that and it brought me some relief at the time, I still feel that way.
Searching for some kind of justification to justify your actions, but there isn't any justification. It's simply survival of the fittest. It's either kill or be killed. It's that basic. You never get over it, you just kind of live with it inside.
I still don't care about the subjects I was shooting at. In my mind, every single one of them deserves to die and burn in hell. I still think about that to this day. I'll think that till the day that I die. None of them are innocent in my mind. Women, children, old people, doesn't matter. They all deserve what's coming to them.
I guess I expected combat to be a little more clear-cut. There's this thing people talk about occasionally called the fog of war, and it's intense. It's real thick. It's overwhelming cloud of confusion, and it's just things are never clear-cut, in combat. It's not as easy to be able to decipher the difference between, the good and the bad. Especially with Iraq, the Iraqis did a good job of, blending into the civilian population, so it made it really hard to always know who was a combatant and who, was just a civilian. It's that fog of war that really messes things up. It's not as clear-cut and it's easy to process after the fact.
And I remember more than anything from Iraq is always the kids. You can imagine how many times I saw my daughters walking down the street over there. I was so grateful and thankful that they were in America. My wife could load them up, they'd go to McDonald's and get a hamburger and play in the playground. These kids over there were dying when they were going to school.
It was so chaotic. All I remember was just this huge explosion. I couldn't see anything, and just everything in the dashboard was flying out at us. And then I finally got the vehicle stopped, and the dust kind of settled. And then all of a sudden, I heard the Bradleys start sending rounds downrange. How did we get through that? Because the whole front end was gone. Go drink water, you'll feel better. That's the Army's answer to everything, drink water. And I remember we got lunch, and we were sent right back out to do IED sweeps down the main supply routes.
My job was a line corpsman, and I was out there in the thick of it with the Marines, on the ground, carrying a weapon, full-on combat gear, plus the regular gear, plus my med bag. Just to know that their life is in your hands, and then their life could slip at any moment, and then you have to face their parents that you've never met before, and or their wives or whatever, and just say, hey, I'm sorry, I did what I could.
Who do I know is experiencing what I'm experiencing? Who in my universe could even grasp what my days would be like from here on in, until he either came back or till he didn't? Nobody.
But it's not just like, oh, they went to college. I can't even tell you how many times a day and night I would think about him, like, I wonder where he is, I wonder what he's doing, I hope he's okay.
To truly understand what it was like to get up every day and get on IraqiCasualties.com and see if my son was killed while I was sleeping, and to do that every single damn day while he was gone. How do you explain that to somebody?
March the 6th of 1944, first 8th Air Force raid on Berlin. We had an engine knocked out and was losing our place in the formation. Another plane just probably 300 yards away from me, and I was looking right at it, just took a direct hit and blowed up. And the pilot seen that, and he turned the plane down to get in the clouds and get away from fighters. That's what tore up the wing on that airplane. We had about 200 miles of the English Channel to cross. Every one of us was scared. We got on the base, and I went over to the commanding officer and asked him if he had any good ground jobs open. And at that time, life expectancy of a combat airman was 11 missions.
Scared is the word you use for when you almost get in a car wreck, or when a dog jumps on the fence. That's not the word you use for when you think you're gonna die. And there's only been a few times where I was actually afraid over there, and then it's mortal terror. I'm gonna die and there ain't shit I can do about it.
As I turned my head to the left, I saw like a shadow coming, and it was the RPG. Everything was like being in a movie. Everything was like in slow motion. And there was a lot of smoke in the vehicle. I remember my leg was kind of like sitting on top of the driver. And I remember grabbing my leg. I had like a really, really, really strong pain that I just couldn't take it. And I passed out.
You need to fight this battle. You need to win it. You can't do that by fighting by rules, because that enemy doesn't fight by those rules. He will use those rules against you.
And there's a famous quote that says, I'm a soldier. I fight where I'm told to fight, and I win where I fight. And that's what we did. We got told to fight here, we got told to fight there, we got told to fight these people. We fought until there was nothing left.
There isn't a lot of communication. He tried to call before he went out on patrol. It would be really short.
I didn't tell him anything. So, I mean, that's how I dealt with it. So, because I didn't want, I didn't want my mom worrying and my family worrying and stuff. So it was just easier not to tell him.
The part that's getting me is that I know the real reason that he called was in case something happened.
We ended up setting out Christmas Eve night. We ended up seeing a guy. We knew he was, in place an IED right there. As soon as he heard us, or as soon as we said something to him, he took off running. After EOD had cleared the crater, our leadership got together near the hole. We were just looking inside of it, and Sergeant Denford had sent me away to go police up the rest of the wire. The IED that we were all standing next to ended up detonating again. There's I guess there was another IED underneath it. Sorry. We were just sitting there, and that's the first time that we heard that Sergeant Denford ended up dying.
The triangle of death. Hell has nothing on these cities. Our first loss was my wingman gunner, John Barta. He got killed December 23rd of 2006. And then they just kept piling up after that. That really hurt. That was a big one. They took one of ours. So it was no holds bars after that. So we went out on every mission. It didn't matter who it was. We were just looking for blood, and we got it.
My machine gunner, he was sitting next to me, and he said, "Doc, you need to sit in this seat. It's statistically the safest seat." And I said, "Well, I don't believe in that garbage. It's kind of luck of the draw."
We're walking across this bridge. Actually, I remember hearing a click, click, click before it went off.
Holy crap, I'm thinking that I'm being hit by an IED, so obviously I'm still alive.
I came down on the riverbanks.
I just knew I had to get out of the Humvee and go help out the best I could.
It was one of the quickest medevacs they've ever seen, because if I'd have stayed there a few minutes longer, I'd have bled out internally.
All the Marines that were on the base, they were lined up next to the helicopter as they came in, and I was on a stretcher at that point, and they were saluting me. And I just sat straight up and I said, "Don't salute me, I'm not dead."
Got a knock on my door. I let this person in because they were a friend of mine. I don't think there's really anything that led up to the assault. It was somebody that I trusted. It was someone I'd worked with. For a long time, I've struggled with that because, I kept thinking, I should have known better. I should have known something like this could happen, It's like it was like a blame game, I was blaming myself.
I got hit on the 24th of March of 2007. It was at nighttime. As soon as I saw that bright white flash, I thought that I was dead.
I remember I was sitting on the couch with my daughter, who had just turned 2, and got a phone call, and they handed me the phone and said, "It's for you." And he told me that he was very sorry to have to inform me that my son was very seriously injured by an IED. I remember my legs felt like noodles, and I ended up on my knees on the floor. Everything went out of me, everything went black.
It was just previous blast craters in a perfect line. So I went up on the south side, up toward the buildings, and as soon as I got in line with all the rest of the blast craters, bam, everything went white. It hit directly under me, threw me up into the driver's hatch. Tank weighs 72 tons, and it picked it up and threw it across the road, pointed in a completely different direction than I was going. The next thing I remember, I came to, and my tank commander's waking me up, seeing what's happening so he can report back to the higher ups. And I asked him if he had his truck there. They're trying to make me leave. So we hopped in the truck and I went back. And I stayed for another 3 months.
At some point, the compassion, for people and the giving a shit about people went out the window, to where I didn't care anymore. It was about mission, it was about, safety of the team, and as far as humanity and people went, that shit didn't matter anymore. It was about survival.
When I was a rifle platoon leader, I had anywhere from 20 to 30 guys, under me at any one time. And my mission was just to get us all out of there alive and get back to the States. Because at that time, I think most of us realized this was a farcical war, dreamed up by somebody, had nothing to do with our national security. That was all just pie in the sky stuff to us at that time. We just wanted to get out of there and get back home.
At that point, I didn't care if you were dark-headed and dark-eyed or blonde-headed and blue-eyed. If you endangered me or my men, I was going to deal with you severely. Because I was going to do everything I could to get everybody home that I was supposed to bring home. And I wasn't quite successful with all of that.
I think even just that night after he assaulted me, I was numb. I had a job to do. I couldn't let anything, and this especially, get in the way of that. And I didn't let it bother me because I just shut down. I put it out of my mind. I put it out of my mind so well that it didn't resurface until 3 years later.
When you turn those emotions off, and you turn them off for so long, you kind of like put them in this little place inside of you. I've heard a lot of people say, put it in this little box. You put all these memories in there and everything else. After a while, it all kind of just comes polluted.
My point man opened fire, they returned fire. He was shot. Everything went quiet in the jungle. I can still feel the quiet. There was not a sound anywhere. At that point in time, I lost all track of anything that happened for about 10 days. I was just totally gone. When it went into shutdown mode, basically. Didn't record anything. I have no memory of it.
Waking up at Waterbury Hospital, I was really pissed off. Especially when I saw myself, missing a leg. I was really frustrated. I don't know whether I was going to be able to be productive with my family, if I was going to be the same guy that was very active and had such a perfect life before.
I always had somebody on my right or my left going through it with me. I was never by myself. When I came home, that was a whole nother ball game. And I was not prepared for the reception that I got when I came home. The war had become an embarrassment to the nation at that point. The frustration was being vented on the veteran himself. And I had training with what to do in combat. But when I came home, I was by myself. There was nobody with me.
You finally get to see him, but at the same time, you're trying to prepare yourself because you can't. Your son already thinks he looks like a monster. I remember I had to step out of the room in the hall and cry. And pretty much what you hear is you hear other soldiers, some of them screaming, some of them crying, and you're running down the hall trying to get a nurse or a doctor or someone to help them. and they say it's not time for their meds yet. They can't, and they don't come.
I got sent to Balad, and then from there, they said, there's no way in hell that you're staying any longer. You shouldn't be here in the first place. You're lucky you're still walking. You're going home.
He had called one day out of nowhere, and I hadn't heard from him in a while.
I just told her, yeah, I got a really bad concussion, you know, and some broken bones, but, you know, I'm coming home.
He didn't sound right.
She didn't take it as lightly as I thought she would. She took it pretty heavy.
His PTSD was off the chart, and he didn't want to leave his guys because they vowed to take each other home alive.
Yeah, I figured coming home, you know, a nice Southern California home, you know, nice down comforted, you know, sheets and blankets and all that, you know, that's what I was dying for. I mean, I had thought all along, you know, that's what I was missing, you know, that's what I wanted. I just wanted to be home, you know, and be part of all that again. And, you know, it's weird how, I guess the hood of the Humvee with a poncho liner felt like home.
Got home to Philadelphia, and there was no one there to greet me. So I took a cab home to my father's house, and, well, you know, there's an aspect of this that I'm not sure I even want to go into here. I don't want to, it's kind of painful, so I'm just not going to. It wasn't a pretty thing. There was nobody there waving flags and saying, welcome home. It was just, you know, okay, you're home, and glad you made it home, and that was it.
When we got back, they said, you're dismissed, and I walked up into the bleachers where my wife and my kids were. I was like, man, they're right there. They're right there. I got up there and hugged them and kissed them, and they wanted to linger around and hug, and I was like, that was foreign to me, you know, love and emotion. I haven't hugged somebody or told somebody I love them for a year. And yeah, I got to come back and be a husband again.
Kirsten, she just snapped right back into the way it was before he left. You know, it's like he hadn't been gone at all. The hard part is our daughter was 9 months old when he left, and she was over a year and a half old when he came back on leave. And she just, for him, it was a stranger. And that broke my heart more than anything.
Veterans who are returning now, they're at a developmental stage of their lives in their 20s and 30s. A lot of people tell me, well, I just want to forget all the bad stuff that happened, leave that behind and build my life and go on. That being the case, many clients will come in for treatment initially, and then it seems they become overwhelmed with the demands of busyness and family life and starting their career.
When he first came back, I knew that he was different. This Patrick didn't meet my eye. And Patrick, I don't care if he was angry, he met your eye.
He's a caring person. He just doesn't leave just anybody behind. I mean, he sees someone suffering, he's gonna go and help. And he's like that. That's Patrick.
As long as you both shall live.
At the time, I was thinking, I just thought I was special. That I can save him, you know, that I'm new, and he's thinking the positive way.
You can kiss. You have to make it official.
It was like a darkness that I don't think anybody else noticed, because on the other side, he would be funnier than usual. But his eyes were dark. He was sleeping more and drinking more.
And the whole time, I didn't care how bad I was hurt. I was just pissed off they wouldn't send me back with my guys.
It was such a mind fuck to come from that to Maine and the pretty little airport and serenity and familiar. They had that deer in the headlights look coming down the stairs at the airport. I remember that distinctly, saying, he doesn't belong here right now. This is not good. He needs to stay in the game. He needs to keep his head on straight.
That's what I was made to do. I don't care how bad the situation is over there. Fighting is what I was meant to do. And I didn't want to have my guys there without me.
Well, I woke up in Bethesda and I had both of my legs still, and so obviously there's hope.
They told me they were going to amputate my left arm and my left leg, but then my blood flow was so good, They didn't need to. So I was like, awesome, I like my legs, I'd like to keep them.
My left leg it looked fine on the outside, but both were considered limb salvage.
I wanted to try and do a limb salvage and, save my leg. So I went through maybe 50, 60 surgeries in just a few month period. I was having surgery every other day.
Another 3 months went by, and the only reason why I'm in the hospital really now is because of my legs, because they need so much care and attention that I can't move, I can't walk.
They had almost completely exhausted all the resources that they had to save my limb.
I talked to the doctors and they're like, we can fix your right leg, you can keep it, but you won't be able to run. You'll probably have to walk with a walker for the rest of your life. And I was like, what's the point in having it if I can't use it? I want to have kids. I want to be able to play baseball, football with my kids. I want to be able to run, and I want to be able to have fun. I wanted to stay in the Marine Corps.
I said, give me your brutally honest answer. And he said I would amputate.
What's the point in having 2 legs if I can't do anything with them? Fuck yeah, cut it off.
I turned 20 years old on July 28th, and then I got my leg amputated on the 1st of August.
So I went back to visit my parents, my dad and my stepmother in Illinois. And I wanted to talk about my experiences. And I could tell my dad didn't want me to talk about this stuff. They just wanted me to sit down at the table and be the same old kid that I had been before. And I wasn't.
I married a kind, affectionate young man. I did not marry a soldier. 3 years later, the Air Force sent home a basket case, a bundle of nerves. He has been fighting the war ever since. I am ready for the war to end. I want my kind, caring, affectionate husband back. Twyla J.
She could tell the difference, but I thought I was normal. I didn't have any problems.
For 23 years, I didn't have any idea something was wrong with me. I knew I was affected by my military experiences in combat, but I thought that's just the way things were.
Okay, this is probably normal. I spent 7, 8 months in a combat zone. We had a certain period of time that we'd still be jacked up. We'd still be, high on that war buzz or whatever it is, that adrenaline rush. I just figured it would take, a small amount of time for it to kind of ease off and go away.
I didn't know anything about PTSD before I met Kenny. I think Kenny was still under the impression that he was completely normal, which I know it sounds very harsh in a way, but when you have PTSD, it's anything but normal.
His personality changed instantly. He'll go being mad and then happy in like 2 seconds.
When I would ask him what was the matter with him, that he didn't seem right, that he seemed different, he would just say, Ma, it's your imagination, you know how you are.
And he'd go in a depression mode. There's days where he's just sitting in the room for hours. But I didn't know it was PTSD.
We're really just the beginning now of understanding just the brain basis of PTSD as a general category. So that gives us a clinical problem to solve because there are a lot of people, especially the veterans going through the current conflicts that you see, are really suffering with PTSD. Without us really having any magic bullet, there's no ability to cure and still limited ability to advance care.
When I came back from Korea, we didn't know what was wrong with me, but my dad apparently did. He'd say shell shock, flak happy, and battle fatigue.
I was just glad to be home, that I made it home alive. I made it home unscathed. I had no idea what was going on inside, But I didn't know about PTSD at the time. That wasn't even a term.
I remember filling out a medical survey. And they would ask questions like, do you have nightmares? Are you hypervigilant? Do you have depression? And, I remember check marking the yes box on every one, but I was never contacted.
And he's got this tattoo, and it's just the word 19.
I get a lot of questions about that. Oh, did you get that when you were 19 years old? Were you 19 when you lost your virginity? And I just kind of chuckle and walk off.
It's just the word 19.
Most people don't want to hear that that's how many people I killed in Iraq.
Which means it was either him or them. And there's 19 times my son should have died but didn't, at least. And it's 19 times my child killed someone.
People call me a psycho. People call me sick in the head. People call me a disturbed person.
I mean, did you ever think about your child ending someone else's life?
I am proud of every single one of them because there's 19 less assholes that can kill our men in uniform that are fighting over there. The same person with that magnet on their car comes up to me, asks me what my tattoo on my neck means, and then you call me a psycho? Okay. Have a good day, sir.
I went to some counseling while I was in Iraq because I was having a lot of issues. And a lot of those issues I brought home with me.
Coming home, I thought was coming home to Wichita. And it's that gut feeling you have inside that you're supposed to be somewhere else, but you're actually like, I'm here. Ever since I came home from Iraq, I felt like I was supposed to be somewhere else.
We saw a car stalled on the highway. To me, it was just a car stalled on the highway. For Apache, he's like, no, you need to get over, all the way over to the other side. I thought he should be able to switch it off when he came back. Just realized he's in America now. We don't have car bombs. But in his mind, there's always the potential for that.
He would wake up in the middle of the night and hear the mechanics running up the engines on the bombers, getting ready for a mission.
I was driving myself nuts and everybody around me. I was a basket case. Couldn't hold jobs. I was changing jobs all the time. And if I'd get a promotion or a raise or something, well, it comes some more responsibility and I couldn't handle it. Go to another job.
He had a good job at Boeing when he went into the service, and when he came back, he wasn't interested in being around people at all.
Didn't want to be around a lot of people. In fact, I still don't. I'm real thankful that she didn't complain about that. It stayed with me. She passed on about 4.5 years ago. We had almost 62 years of marriage.
One of the first questions I was asked was, had I killed anybody? I was honest. Next thing I knew, I'm kind of standing in the middle of the room by myself. Everybody else has found other people to talk to. I'd stepped over that taboo. I'd taken a human life. And none of these people in this room had, nor knew anybody that had. And they were uncomfortable around me. I realized I just didn't fit. I just needed to shut up about Vietnam. So I did.
There's something inside of me that I gotta feed every now and then. You've gotta have that chaos going on. You've gotta always have somebody to fight. You've gotta have that feeling, that life-affirming rush that I'm still alive and it could be taken away right now. I'd rather die than come back and live a mundane life. Just wanted to fight somebody. I didn't care if I got beat. I didn't care if I won. I didn't care if it was 5 of them. I didn't care how old they were. I saw more times in Iraq where the violence was the answer. Aggression was the answer. Not we talked about it. We de-escalated it. No.
Yeah, I'd party pretty much all day. Not so much party as it was just get intoxicated. It seemed to make it all a little easier to make it through. The other part was being armed. I'd spent, 9 months, in a combat zone where I never had my rifle farther than arm's reach.
It was a little disturbing having him be kind of the way that he was with the loaded weapon. He wanted to seem to almost pick fights with everybody that he came into contact with.
They don't teach you how to hurt people, they teach you how to kill people. It can definitely cause a lot of issues, you know, especially when your first instincts are to react with overwhelming force. It's just a whole different mentality.
I don't know if he would have the ability to say, okay, I'm gonna walk away from this, or if he would just continue until something extremely bad was to happen.
My PTSD affects my kids because I'm less apt to want to get up and make dinner. They've got functions and activities at school. I don't want to be involved in them. Some family functions that we have, I don't want to be involved in them. Therefore, the children are missing out on family and friends that they would otherwise see. When we moved these last 4 or 5 times, they've had to change schools and friends, and so that's been kind of hard on them. I want to be a better dad. I know that I'm not a very nice person, and I think that might kind of deter some people from wanting to have anything to do with us because of me.
Most of us that had been in the Warrior Society and were Vietnam veterans, we knew what was going to happen.
It was like they were in my own head. They knew what I was thinking, what I was going to react. They'd done it themselves.
He can talk to all kinds of friends of his, but unless they've been there, they don't hear what he's saying. And I can respond to what he's been through because in a lot of ways, my war is real similar to his war.
And it was such a relief for someone to say that we understand, that you're not crazy. And they said, we'll help you, and you're okay, and we'll help you.
He was appreciative of what the society was doing for him and all, but he was a little standoffish. Probably needed to talk, but he wasn't ready to talk. As time went by, we would see less and less of him. He would become more withdrawn.
PTSD has been around for a very long time. There are writings for ages, for thousands of years, describing what we now understand to be PTSD. And there's a good reason for that. PTSD itself is wound into the brain circuitry that's there to protect us, there to tell us if something is to be feared, a place, a thing is to be feared. But what PTSD is a gross exaggeration of that then generalizes to many, many aspects of your life.
He was lost. He didn't carry himself like he usually does. He was just different, obviously. I didn't go to anger after seeing him like that. I think I went straight to fear because I thought, my God, if this is what PTSD is, I'm not going to have him much longer. Then I remember thinking, you know what? If he can't come back in such a manner, in such a state, that my love and determination can't fix this, then just take him now. Just take him.
I first realized that he was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder was sitting in his hospital room.
I had had a really bad nightmare about what happened on Christmas, and I woke up in a pool of sweat.
That was hard because he'd move like he was protecting himself. You could tell he was reliving things.
Yeah, I mean, it was the middle of the night, and I mean, she was like standing up looking at me.
How do you talk to them? How do you? Because we didn't even understand. I mean, we're not trained. They put him back together physically, but as far as all the wounds you can't see, they didn't do anything.
It's like, nothing wrong with me, I'm fine, you know, I made it back, I'm alive. All the while, there's these things running around inside your head, like the feelings of guilt for killing somebody and the feelings of guilt for losing my point man Herbie, those kinds of things. They're all running around, but they're deep inside you. And they're affecting everything you do, but you don't realize it. But there's no outward sign. There's no flesh wound or any of that stuff, so.
They said I had a severe and acute case of PTSD. I had no idea what PTSD was.
So being diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, so I felt a little sense of relief that it wasn't just me.
Post-traumatic stress, they diagnosed me with it when I first came home, which, obviously you get blown off a fucking bridge. What are you gonna have?
Physically not the same, mentally not the same. Then on top of that, I had PTSD. I couldn't understand why I was going through this. I was like, this is a nightmare.
So they told me that probably I could go to a group and it would help. And I had said to myself, bullshit. I don't need to sit around the table with a bunch of hairy-legged old boys spinning sea stories. I've spent 50 years trying to forget it, and now you want me to rehash it again?
A couple months later, I found myself in Menlo Park, California, at the National Center for PTSD. By that point, I was on so many different medications. I think at one point I was on, 14, 16 different medications every day.
For my amputation, I was on 22 different medications, and half of them were pain meds. With me being on so many medications and stuff, I needed someone to be with me while I was at Walter Reed.
I felt torn because I had a 2-year-old at home that I couldn't bring. And then I had my son who needed me. And I actually had people say they got sick of hearing about it. They stopped calling, they went on with their own lives, and this is our life now. He's still not okay.
So out of that 400, we lost 29 killed in action and about 3 times that in wounded. And it just wore on me. Watching guys that I knew very well just decay. So I was starting to get physically wore down, but much more so emotionally. Instead of staying in a bad situation, I wanted to actually do something, not just sit there and be pissed off about the cards he got dealt. I wanted to go find the cure. So with what I'd learned between the Army hospitals, my academic training, my combat training, I decided to get out of the Army and take a shot at grad school. Why not?
When I was going to rehab in Washington, D.C., I remember the first time they came over.
We were actually the first people to go down to Walter Reed, and I had the honor of meeting soldiers who were 3 or 4 weeks out of Iraq.
And they asked me if I wanted to do hand cycling. I was like, hand cycling, what is that? Oh, it's a bike that you do with your hands. I was like, that doesn't make any sense.
These 2 girls were in our formation, and they were just wearing these old polos that said Achilles, and one of the staff members asked, hey, who here's ran track or cross country before?
And I would introduce myself and I would say, are you going to do the marathon with us in November?
Are these people out of their mind? A marathon? Are they making fun of me or something? Hey, and I told them, do you see them coming again? Close the door, don't let them in.
And they look at me and they say, well, sir, I just lost my leg 3 weeks ago. I can't walk.
And so I raised my hand, and then they came over and talked to me, and they said, hey, you wanna come out to Miami? You wanna come do a marathon? And I was like, yeah, I guess, yeah.
Don't ask me how, but I signed up for the marathon. So here I go, did the marathon.
I believe it's one of the most important parts of the returning warrior healing and sort of closure after combat is to be able to reunite with his battle buddies.
When I first encountered the VAC, I was not even a year out from my injury. I was about 11 months. I just got my first prosthetic. I didn't feel like me still. I felt broken still.
The Veterans Airlift Command was born out of my own experience in Vietnam. What better way to spend my retirement than to fly my airplane and pick up a wounded soldier or his family and get him home or bring his family to see him?
He was a Vietnam vet. Knowing that he's a vet, there's easy things to talk about.
There's something happening here that connects our generation with the next.
I really appreciate that about the Vietnam vets, how they helped us. You know, they blazed a path to make sure we didn't end up the way they did. Kind of reminds you that the world is still good, you know? Not everybody's trying to blow you up. Not everyone's trying to kill you. There's still good left in it.
You know, it's a sense of closure for me as well. Being able to do this for these young guys is in a sense being able to do it for ourselves. We get to experience vicariously what we never experienced.
It was pretty awesome. Like, I just did my first marathon. It was like, I hand cycled it, but I still did a marathon.
It was a great feeling of going back physically and somehow mentally strong. Like, I was like, wow, I can't believe I pushed myself and I did a marathon.
Just that feeling of accomplishing something right after I just lost my leg, and I felt like I was losing hope, and it was a phenomenal feeling.
It was magical because I was physically, mentally connected.
We were moving into this house. I was plugging things in, and I noticed immediately we were missing one of the main power cords. It just came out of left field. He just started, I could see, like, everything was just starting to boil over for him, and I hadn't seen him like that. I don't even know how it got to that point or how it happened. I didn't see it coming.
I couldn't check my email, so I slapped her.
I was just in shock. And I was just thinking, I can't live like this anymore.
And it was nothing. After it was done, I told her I'd kill her. She's shaking, terrified out of her mind. I got in the shower, get ready for bed.
So I acted like everything was okay. And I waited until I got into the shower, and I called the police.
I wanted somebody to come all the time. I'd sit in the middle of the night waiting for them to come in the middle of the night, hoping they'd come. I got tired of waiting, worrying all the time when they're gonna come. Just come now, let's do it now.
And I told them, you know, we had 2 guns in the house.
I remember they sent 5 cops to come to my house, and I answered the door with a loaded gun.
And I was terrified because I didn't know how he would react.
I looked at my wife. She was crying. I looked out there and I saw those cop cars and those officers 6 inches away from me. I could have shot both of them through the door. They had no idea. And my kids are sleeping 10 feet behind me. That's when something clicked, something changed. I looked at that pistol, I cleared it, put it on my bed, and I walked in there and I just told them, take me to jail. They said, do you know why you're going to jail? When he just put me in the back of the car and I had handcuffs on, I said, yes, because I've got a problem.
When I was in Menlo Park, that's when I realized my sexual assault while I was deployed. I had buried it for 3 years up to that point. And you know, I think it was because I was hearing the stories from the other females that were there, and almost all of them had that happen. And you know, just all these memories just were flooding back. I was having to relive my trauma all over again from the start.
I didn't want to be home. I didn't want to be in the United States. I wanted to be back there because I wanted to be with my brothers. I wanted to be in my unit. I was able to call the Iridium phone. And of course, I called. And that day was when a good friend of mine and a whole bunch of other guys got killed by a suicide bomber.
Dealing with the survivor's guilt of making it through the deployment when they didn't, that weighs a lot heavier.
I lost one of my grenadiers on July the 11th, 1967. And it's, you beat yourself up some about, you know, woulda, shoulda, couldas.
My roommate got hit and killed the same exact way, in the same exact spot, by the same exact person that blew me up a week earlier.
I was sad that I lost my team leader. And, you know, I was the gunner, so you always feel like you blame yourself for what happened.
He was a good friend of mine. We had plans. You know, I was gonna get my Harley, he was gonna get his Harley. We were gonna ride across the country, we were gonna do all this and all that, and then like that, he's gone. It was just.
And then adding to the survivor's guilt, trying to reintegrate into civilian life.
I stayed up at nights for a long time, but for a while I was like, why didn't I just die over there? Why didn't they just kill me? It would have been easier.
You come to realize you did the best you could do with the information you had at the time. And that gives you some peace. It gives me some peace about what happened, but it doesn't bring Clarence back.
I just want to do it for him, you know. He didn't make it back. I made it back. So I have a moral obligation to push hard, to keep pushing. There's one thing I remember. I remember he was saying, like, Freddy, don't stop shooting, keep shooting. And I remember that voice. Freddy, don't stop shooting, keep shooting. Freddy, don't stop shooting, keep shooting. That was right before I got hit with the RPG. I get my motivation from that.
This year's Hope and Possibility race, to me, it does mean a lot, because the last time that I did it was June of 2007. And I was still kind of early on in my injury phase, but this time I've been training to actually run a 5K.
Be able to represent the Achilles at the Hope of Possibility event this coming summer is going to be a great opportunity for me to see my recovery, to see how strong and how physically and mentally I have progressed.
Just to give back to Achilles and help mentor their guys and just kind of be a leader with the Achilles Freedom Team as well.
Motivate other guys just by seeing how fast and how strong and how well I've been doing. It's going to be a great satisfaction for me.
This is the first time that I had ever tried talking with a professional about it. When I walked in and the therapist was of Arab descent, and I walked in, saw him, walked right back out. I was like, there's no way in hell I'm going to talk to him about this. I made another appointment to go talk with a different therapist. She ended up being a civilian. First thought was, I was like, she's not even in the military. You know, she's never been deployed. She doesn't know what I'm going through. So, and then again, I turned around and walked right back out. I didn't get help for it for years and years after that. I never talked to a professional about it or got help. I just kind of balled it all up and dealt with it.
I can remember, I'd gone in, sat down, there were 6 or 8 guys sitting around in a circle, and they all went around, introduced themselves, and started to say a little bit about themselves. And I was in tears. I mean, I could barely, introduce myself and, say what was going on with me, because it's exactly like my experiences. It's exactly the same struggle as I'm going through.
I feel like there's really something missing if I have to miss the group.
It helped me to realize that I'm not crazy, that the way I am now is normal for what, we experience.
I actually look forward to coming up on Mondays. That's the day that I'm in a group.
It's kind of like a blanket full of bed bugs. You got to shake the blanket to get rid of the bed bugs. And that's what we're doing, is shaking the blanket every time we go to group.
I had sold my motorcycle, and for 20 years didn't have one as I raised a family. Finally, I had enough therapy under my belt. Things got better. My wife at the time said, look, you got the money, you got the time. I'd heard of an organization called Run for the Wall. She says, why don't you buy a motorcycle and go on that ride? Probably some of the best advice that lady ever gave me. We take off, and by about the 3rd day, I'm saying, holy crap, this ain't at all what I thought. I'm seeing an old World War II guy in a uniform standing out alongside of the road, saluting me. I start seeing people on overpasses. They got big signs up. This is the center of the United States. This is where I come from, Kansas and Missouri and Illinois. And people are standing out there saying, welcome home. We love you. Thank you. I'd never heard that before. The healing was definitely taking place.
And then after the war, I didn't know who he was anymore. And I didn't know how to help him.
Chelsea filed for divorce, so I didn't contest it. I didn't try and fight it. Showed up 90 days later and we was divorced. I lost 2 of my kids, lost my house, and I lost my job. And it was just like being in Iraq all over again.
I had 2 miscarriages prior to Phoenix. And Patrick, I think after the 3rd pregnancy, he didn't think he was gonna have his son. So when we hit the 3rd month, knowing that Phoenix is gonna make it, we're gonna pick Pierce. He goes, no, I need something that's different, that's meaningful. And he goes, Phoenix, rise from the ashes and live up to 500 years.
I did my applications, and lo and behold, I got into several, amazing places. Sanford seemed to be the best match, and so in August 2010, I showed up on the doorstep here, and I got introduced to Dr. Etkin and found the Dream Lab.
One of the central themes guiding our own work in the lab is that we have a lot of ways to understand PTSD and a variety of treatments for it, but oftentimes, in fact, generally, they don't speak the same language. And the language we're trying to get them to speak is the language of the brain. And through that, be able to understand why it is that a treatment works for one person or another, guide a person who hasn't had a treatment to the best treatment for them, but also have a basis for understanding how do we do better.
The most brilliant minds with the best institutions, the best equipment, best people, all leveraged at one exact goal. And in the military and principles of war, we call that mass. That's the application of overwhelming power at a precise point. And that's what we're doing here, massing on PTSD.
Going to school, though, being around people that were 16, 17, 18 years old, kids. And the only thing they knew about war was from Call of Duty. And there's no way to hide the fact that I'm a veteran and I've been there. But the traumatic brain injury, as I'm in school, is so hard because a TBI is like that Rolodex. Somebody took it and threw it against the wall as hard as it could and shattered. Everything's there, but it's in no order. And you know you've got the information, but you can't find it. And if you can't find it, you might as well not have it.
When I returned home from Menlo Park, I wanted nothing to do with anyone else. I wanted nothing to do with the military. I wanted my focus to go into my passion, which was musical theater. So I moved to New York City. And I was connected with a retired Army colonel named Ann Wright, who was a strong activist for military sexual trauma. She had asked me to speak at a press conference in the middle of Times Square regarding military sexual trauma. You know, and oh, I was so scared. If I don't start this now, if I don't give myself that voice, I wouldn't be able to start living my life and looking towards a future for myself if I didn't do this. So I forced myself. In the middle of Times Square with all these people, you know, staring at me, I just remember I was so upset.
I pushed the attack so far from my mind that I was unwilling and unable to admit it, even to myself, up until 2 years ago.
In doing my speech, even though I was upset, it was liberating.
I finally have the courage and strength to say to you, and to anyone who will hear me, my name is Staff Sergeant Sandra Lee, a soldier and woman who was raped 5 years ago. But that does not define me. I am not weak. I am not stupid. I am not ashamed, and I am not shattered. And I will not be silenced anymore. We will not be silenced anymore.
And I just remember just sobbing afterwards, and I felt a part of this weight and this tension that I had been holding for so long, just being released from that.
A person with PTSD truly is a misfit, but it takes a certain kind of caring individual to ever be affected and have PTSD.
He had the stroke in July. We were told literally he had hours to live, and there was nothing that impacted me more than having to know that I had to step in and take control of a man who had always been the strongest man that I ever knew. They didn't think he would make it through the night, so we thought it was just stubborn Bill Johnson that propelled him through. Members of his group were devastated to see him after his stroke, where he wasn't even as recognizable. And it's hard for his family to see him in such a state.
When I first started to consider the option of getting a service dog for post-traumatic stress, one of my first thoughts was, you know, what's a dog gonna do for me that I kind of can't make happen on my own? Or
what's there to lose, you know? I mean, you're already kind of at your point where medication's just not working for you. Counseling is not really, you know, going to solve all your problems. There's gotta be something out there that's going to make that change for you.
when I first got Atlas, you know, and actually got him back to my house, you know, and we started to kind of interact and build that bond, I thought it would actually keep people away from me a little bit, kind of help buffer me. I was dead wrong.
Instead of Atlas secluding him inside of a house like Kenny had wanted, he was bringing him out and bringing so much attention to him that it kind of changed his perspective of things.
I didn't realize that that's exactly what I needed. You know, I kind of needed that social retraining.
A guy in my platoon sent me a copy of a video called Homecoming: A Vietnam Veteran's Journey. was a very, very interesting piece chronicling this thing called Run for the Wall across the country. And one of the guys really struck a nerve with me. J.R. Franklin.
People contacted me who had seen the documentary and thanked me for what I had had to say, or said that they could relate to something that I had said in there. When I'm driving down a road, I would be constantly looking for where the ambush site was.
Talked about when he came back to the States, how when he was driving down the road, he would be constantly looking for places where people would be setting up ambushes. And man, that hit me like a ton of bricks because I had the exact same feeling riding down the roads just where I lived in Pennsylvania.
I saw the potential of reaching other veterans, that they might find the same healing experience that I found on the run.
And if it's helped him, I think it could help me. And that's when I started exploring going on Run for the Wall. And I made my first journey in 2006, and it was the best decision I've made in my life about treating myself for what happened to me in Vietnam.
And I think of it as addicting people to achievement. If you've lost a leg or two and you're doing a marathon, that's really special. And what happens is you come out, you succeed, and you say, my goodness, what else can I do? What's my next goal?
It feels pretty good to be back in New York. I did this New York Open Possibilities 5K. I did it in 2007, which was just a year after my injury, so it brings back a lot of memories.
I'm really excited to be back in New York. We normally don't have that many races in New York, so every time I do something in New York, I really get excited.
My goal of being here today is just to, complete this. I just had another major operation. I just had surgery 56. I did training for this. I've been doing training, up until my surgery, but I needed that surgery at that moment in time.
You get more joy out of helping others than you did out of doing it yourself. So that many of the people who come out here and have been with us a few years help others, and this is really ecstasy.
Oh, these guys are great. Every time I see those guys, I get pumped up, I get fired up just to see like some of these guys fresh out of the hospital. They're already here doing this,
Mark?
And it's just me moving forward, one motion, just moving forward, me, my bike, and myself. It's just moving forward. I feel strong, I feel powerful. I feel like I'm invisible, like it's still the same. Like, guess what? Yeah, you got injured, but you're doing it, and you're pushing forward, and I don't feel disabled.
I kind of was down on myself, the whole having surgeries and the being back on pain medicine and just being in bed and having to rely on somebody. Couldn't have been a better time. I just walked 5 miles when I'm not supposed to, so.
We all have some kind of disability. Whether you're missing a leg or missing an arm or you are completely able-bodied, we all have some type of disability. It's just that we can see it, Sometimes in your heart, sometimes up here.
The chaos in my mind just compounded upon the chaos that was around me. I felt like I needed to be in a different place. So that's what brought me to Connecticut. I felt like I was really starting to find my home.
We just want to be accepted. If you have no place to feel safe and secure, that's not going to happen. So that's what we try to create.
It really wasn't until this weekend it really hit me. This was going to be my home.
Purple Heart Homes is the organization that qualified Sandra as a service-connected disabled veteran.
And in seeing all the firefighters and police and their sweat and hard work being put into this home, like it just meant so much to me.
Our organization is called Heart 9/11. It stands for Healing Emergency Aid Response Team. It was formed shortly thereafter of the World Trade Center attacks in New York City. New York City police and fire and construction unions make up the bulk of the core group.
All these people coming who have experienced, their own traumas and tragedies.
Like here, it looks like we're helping Sandra Lee, but we're also helping ourselves, and anyone that joins in with us in the long term is helped.
Anybody can build a house, but until you have that safe refuge inside of a community that you trust, it's not truly a home.
The word home has an entirely different meaning now. And this was it. Come on in.
Having a sense of home is critical to recovery in PTSD. People feel quite displaced after trauma. This is tied in with losing your identity, not knowing who you are anymore, getting that back as part of your home. It's not that you go back to a place you were before trauma. These things have to be rebuilt, and hopefully in healthier ways.
Well, I got married, and about a year into the marriage, I made the error of buying a 2-bedroom home thinking we were going to retire into it. Now we have 2 of the children with us and a court battle for 2 more. It's tolerable for someone like me, somebody that's been in the military. That type of stuff is still a struggle for my wife. So what I see as efficient and functional doesn't have the frilly stuff that a lady needs. I never really wanted a home in the past. I wanted a defendable position. And I like the idea of a home.
Pretty much ever since I got out of the Army, I've been traveling a lot. I've lived in, I think, 3 different states. I guess just trying to find a place where I can be happy and stuff. Because I think that I can, try and escape it if I put myself in a new environment, in a new place. After being in that new place for a little bit, I'm not really sure how it happens or when it happens, but just those feelings just hits me all at once, really bad.
I still sleep with my phone every night just in case there's a call in the middle of the night, because he has called in the middle of the night when the demons come out, crying because his brain was fucked up and he didn't understand this and he hurt and just everything was closing in on him.
I don't consider this living. I'm trapped. I might as well be in a 6x8 cell.
My son has not come home in a big way.
But when you've left so much of yourself on the battlefield, where else can you call home?
To know that he can't find home, that hurts. That hurts.
I heard the gunshot and I went out and I found my husband dead. It was a hope, but not anymore. Now it's a nightmare. I would sit in the living room, I would see him come down the step and just say, I'm sorry. Or there's nights where I sleep and I wake up and I see his body. This has become a place where he died, memories. It's somewhere I kind of not want to be if I want to move on. I can't move on and know that it's here, I'm going to remember the good things, but I don't need it, I don't need it in my face about the bad things.
It's completely unacceptable, and it's appalling what our veterans experience
How the hell is a brain-injured, beaten down, frustrated, tired service member supposed to cut through all that crap?
It almost sometimes seems like the government makes it so difficult that the veterans give up.
Based on the knowledge I had acquired and being a pissed off mom with knowledge, knowing for a fact that a lot of the guys did not have the luxury of a mom or anybody to advocate for them. It was just a natural fit for me to continue doing for others what I did for him. So my son is the inspiration for Wounded Heroes Program of Maine. It's heartbreaking, it's difficult. You have to have broad shoulders. You know, you don't want to piss off Mama Bear, all right? You're gonna lose.
His buddy, who was also a former Marine, mentioned to him, you know, Kenny, now that Atlas is around, do you have any intentions of doing something with him?
This is a continuation of my mission, you know, that oath. You never leave a man behind, you know, and whether it's on the battlefield or whether it's home.
And they created a Battle Buddy.
There's a reason why we call it the Battle Buddy Foundation. You know, when you're in combat, you don't ever go anywhere without your battle buddy.
The Battle Buddy Foundation started off with certain things that they wanted to do, having service dogs out there for other veterans. But I don't think he understood that while getting into it and while building the organization, it's healing him inside because he knows he's not alone and that there's other people out there to help.
You know, I wondered what my real mission in life was, you know, and this is really given a value. This is given a purpose.
He was given this responsibility for a reason.
There was a reason for all that pain and all that struggle. There was a reason for, you know, all those dark nights. There was a reason for, you know, the pain that my family's gone through.
I think he feels like he's got a place. You know, this is where he can walk in and hang his hat. I think he feels like this is home now.
War is hell, there's no two ways about it. It takes away your innocence, and there's no way you can get it back.
He was not afraid of dying, but he was afraid of hell because of what he had done. He had killed so many people that he had broken every commandment in the Bible.
Anytime you kill your fellow man, you know it's wrong. You ask forgiveness every way you know how.
The other day, he said, it's okay. I don't feel very good, but I'm gonna be okay because I'm going to a better place soon.
I'm not a huge spiritual man. What really boosted my spirituality and my belief in God was when I did get blown up that night. And it wasn't my time, so he sent me back. Being an outdoorsman, I find peace just in the outdoors in general. You know, that's when I'm closest with God. That's when I feel most at home in this civilian world. There's nothing that's ever gonna take place of the battlefield. That's where I belong. That's where I need to die.
It makes me wish, thinking back to the Halloween costume, that I could turn back time and keep his visions of what a soldier really is, pure. Everything he envisioned it to be, but without the pain.
My time's coming someday, I don't know when. Never expected to live to be 90 years old. Well, about everything you see, I've collected over the years, and all the moving around, I didn't realize my wife kept all those medals. I'm really thankful that she did. I really believe the boys are gonna hang on to this stuff after I'm gone. Sometimes I spend quite a little time in here. It just makes me think of stuff that is impossible to forget. things happen that ain't gonna go away as long as I live. I've already lived a lot longer than I ever expected to. I really hope I've been a good example to many of them.
But it's like nonstop. I mean, we got up this morning at 4 o'clock. We probably will get to bed tonight at maybe 9, and then get up at 4 o'clock in the morning again and do it all over. For 10 days, we do this.
And we're home.
The beautiful thing is we actually get to be together on the run. I mean, there are a lot of guys out there who just leave their wives at home because their wives don't want to ride, so. I don't know, we kind of play off each other, you know, she'll be there when I'm having a rough day or something, and I'll be likewise there for her if she's having, you know, something happen in her life. So it's great, we just support each other all the way across the run.
Working on the Run for the Wall together is just wonderful. To me, it bonds us together even more. It's a good feeling to know that we're both trying to give back in whatever way we can.
I love seeing her ride, and she loves seeing me ride, and we're just kind of like soulmates, really.
I was divorced for 13 years before I met John. So I felt that when John and I got married, that it was a second chance that God gave me to have another good marriage.
I have a one-on-one relationship with God right now, as does Diane, and together we're glued together by that relationship. And I'm not going to let go of that, and she's not either. So I have every confidence in the world that I have found home. I'm home, no matter it's this house or Timbuktu or Colorado or Montana or wherever it is.
The meds that I take during the day, I have one of them is an antidepressant, and another one is a booster for an antidepressant. And then I take, for my anxiety medication, I take 3 pills a day. And then I've got my Seroquel, which I take it during the day. And if I had not have gone to Iraq, then I would have still had some issues that I have today. But I don't think I would have near the problems and the issues that I have now. And then after I finish those, at nighttime, when it's time to go to bed, I have to get in here and take 3 Seroquel, and then to help me not dream, I have my Prazosin, which I take 2 of these at night before I go to bed. And then I also take Temazepam before I go to bed to help me sleep. But yes, I think things would have been a lot different had I not gone to Iraq.
PTSD is not an easily treatable disorder. It's not something that goes away on its own.
There's nothing wrong saying I'm broke, gotta fix it. You would clean your weapon, you would clean your vehicle, you would take care of them, and you would get other people to help you so that when you needed it, it would work. There's nothing wrong with doing that for your mind.
As people start to realize that they have something that can get treated, it's a long process. Nobody goes into complete remission and has a cure.
The price of freedom, of the influence of PTSD in my life, is a constant awareness on my part of what's going on for me.
The war will not be won now with respect to PTSD. It's something that we need to be vigilant over decades for these folks and everybody who comes after them.
By embracing the treatment of PTSD, I have become a much more effective individual in everything that I do. Because of that, many others benefit. I'm not sure where my life is going to lead with all of this, but if I can make one veteran breathe easier because of the knowledge that I have, then according to Emerson, I have succeeded.
Since Brandon was injured just over 6 years ago, the anxiety, the worry, the panic, it doesn't go away.
Whenever I see my mom struggling, worrying about me, I mean, it kind of makes me feel like crap because I don't want to be like a burden on anyone. I don't want anyone to have to worry about me.
I feel a huge sense of loss because I feel like I've lost my son.
Seeing my mom struggle and my mom worry about me, it makes me want to get better to where no one will have to worry about me or worry about like what I'm doing or where I'm at or where I'm going.
I know my son's still in there. But I think as much as I want to take everything away and make everything okay, the best thing I can do for him is just be there for him and let him know that I love him no matter what, and I'll always be there for him. I believe Brandon sidestepped death more than once, and he is here and still here because he has still so much to offer to so many people.
Says my mom is special. My mom is special because she loved me, she hugged me, she kissed me. I like it when my mom helps me. Had I not said enough to him? Had I said too much? Had I said too little? Had I not prayed enough? Had he not prayed? What could I have done? And you want to blame somebody. Somebody's taken your child from you, even if it's at their own hand. Was it really at their own hand? I don't believe that it was. I believe that he just didn't know. Because the Patrick that I raised is giving and caring and would have thought of himself last. Not first, but last.
It's not that they want to die. They just want this excruciating emotional pain to stop. In the war zone, there's a solution to your problem, and that is eliminate the opposition.
The warrior was the one that protected the village, protected the families. And basically that's what the Warrior Society does to this community.
My mom and dad were introduced there by my grandpa. And they met there. My mom and dad were married there. I went to my first dance when I was 2 weeks old there. I met my wife there. And I asked her to marry me there. We say that the drumbeat is the heartbeat of our people, of our culture. That place is the heartbeat of the culture for me. And then here now I am, all these years later, I'm a member of the society.
The powwow that's happening today, and Apache is the head singer there, one of the things that circle does is it's a circle of healing. It's not just a place for dancing.
In that place, when I close my eyes and I sing those songs, and I hear that drum, and I can feel that energy, I can feel the heartbeat, the life of our people there.
It was good to see my brother in the inner circle and singing. I mean, it was a good honor, you know, a great honor.
It also makes Apache, I'm sure, feel a part of his dad's still with him.
When my dad was alive and he was sitting over there watching me, we were sitting at that drum, same spot as me. To be able to go there and be truly free, to be singing that song, to close my eyes, to put every bit of emotion, every bit of thought, every bit of anything that I have, all of myself into that song. There's nothing else. There's no Iraq. There's no memories. There's no nightmares. There's no divorce. There's that moment, that one moment, and I'm truly free. I'm truly alive. And I'm invincible.
You don't go to war and lead the war, you go to war. It's just the battlefield changes. When you come home, there's plenty of other wars to fight. There's plenty of other battles that's gonna lie ahead.
Think I'd better rest a while and try to collect myself. Go and find a place inside this time and think of nothing else. 'Cause this road has been longer than all the rest, but I have done my best to remain here with all of you. Close your eyes, ease your mind. Take this time to bring yourself back home. It always seems to sneak up behind me and take me down with one blow. A never-ending battle, and where the winner will take all. So to the best of times we find ourselves out, riding in the sun, and then we're gone with all we won. Close your eyes, ease your mind, and take this time to bring yourself back home. It's all in the choice of which way you go, the same as it was just the day before. You search this world for something